Hey, love, before we jump in, I want to make you aware that Tools of Transformation is open as of now, and it holds all the exercises that I wish I would have known when starting on my spiritual journey, even before, because would I have known how much it helps my daily life to reset my nervous system, to release stress, release anger, to energetically make conversations go my way before I even have them, or what mirror work can do, my life would have been shifted. So I really invite you to check that out. Link is in the captions below. And now we jump straight into the episode to have another wonderful conversation about how to get to this point of empowerment, how other women did it, what tools they used, what perspective shifts they found for themselves, how they navigated their life to come back to their empowerment. Enjoy the episode. So, hello, beautiful souls. I'm beyond excited for today's episode because of the wonderful Wendy with me. And this is really a dear one because we have connected before on a soul level. And I'm so excited, Wendy, that you are joining me today. I'm so happy that we found a time. And I would love, before we dive in, that you kind of introduce yourself and like share a bit about what you want to share about you, and then we see what the universe creates with us together today.
I thank you so much, Anna. I am so excited to be here with you. My name is Wendy with an E, and my last name is Fahey. I am going to be 56 years old in a week. So I'm 55 with a 29-year-old brain. So my meat suit's 55, but my brain thinks I'm still 29.
Me too.
I'm a long time practitioner of energy work. In particular, I am a Kundalini Reiki master teacher. I provide people with transformational chakra balancing sessions. I read tarot. I read oracle cards. I do a daily collective reading online. What else can I tell you? I've been on a really I would like to say fascinating journey. And I guess if I look at it from a positive perspective, it's been a fascinating journey for the last 2 years. My husband died in April of 2023 unexpectedly. And it has not only shot me through some of the craziest experiences, but has forced a very deep spiritual awakening in my world. And I look at it sometimes in awe because what has come out is this human being with this depth and breadth of understanding of so many things. And I didn't really like myself all that much when my husband died, but boy, I really like who I see in the mirror these days. And I don't recommend you lose your spouse to find yourself, just saying. But if you have to lose your spouse, do what I did and just promise yourself that you will not let their life take what's left of your life, and you'll live your life as brightly as you can with the understanding that they didn't actually go anywhere and that you are carrying their light and living their light forward. So they're still with you. You're still carrying who they were with you, and you're shining that light out into the world as well. I will say it has really deepened my relationship with God, universe, with all things esoteric, because it's been a very deep inner journey that I've had to go on to get to this side where I can sit and make really bad jokes about the fact my husband died. So
It's so amazing that I had shivers when you just now, kind of practically touched upon that amazing fact that you are seeing this from a positive perspective. And I think it's like it leaves me speechless, as you see. The fact that you found so quickly a positive take on this, because you could just for the next 10 years kind of be in a depression, not living your life, and kind of like what you said before, him losing his life doesn't need to mean you don't value yours or you don't have fun in yours, but that is what is happening so often, even with things less dramatic than a loved one transitioning into another realm. But so often I think we take on things happening to people close to us, or even things happening in the outside world, and we kind of make that our excuse. Is a bit of a harsh word to feel bad, but it's like, you don't have to. If you can feel really good after 2 years after your loved one died, then most of us can, like really take on another perspective. And I think it's amazing that you share about that so openly. So thank you for that. And then I would love to like ask about 1,000 questions about the Kundalini, because we haven't even touched upon that in our last talks.
Well, go ahead. Ask me whatever you would like.
Yes. Okay. So I try to like kind of structurize in my brain, because you said you're doing that for a long time. What is the transformation you've seen after like being in the Kundalini practice for so long? Because I see it's like kind of sparking out over the last few years a lot, and everyone kind of says they're doing it now. But like after such a long period of practicing, of having your body immersed in these energies and this intensity, I feel it's like a whole different world view on it.
Well, I would love to tell you that I've had amazing Kundalini experiences and all that. I haven't. Let me tell you how I ended up as a Kundalini Reiki teacher. I was a practicing massage therapist from 2000 to 2010. And when I was going to school, one day I was massaging someone and my hands turned bright red on both sides and got really hot. This is 2001. Now, for any of you that were alive and aware of spirituality in 2001, you'll know it was still a very underground. Like talking about healing energy, people looked at you like you had 14 heads on your shoulders.
Yeah.
So my hands light up and I'm looking at them like they're foreign objects that I should cut off my wrists. And I went to one of my fellow classmates and said, my hands just got really hot. What the hell is going on? And he said, oh, you need to talk to this guy. So I go talk to this guy and he says, oh, that's healing energy. And I'm like, what the heck is healing energy? I had no idea. And there wasn't like the breadth and depth of the wisdom that there is now. And it was very underground. So I learned by trial and error, and I learned how to channel energy by myself after not channeling energy and things like that. So 2005 rolled around. I met somebody online who was a Kundalini Reiki teacher, and she sent me, which this is not how we do it. She sent me all of the attunements at once, and it's a lot of attunements, and she sent me them all at once. And it didn't do anything. Like I should have, I've seen some of my students go through some really crazy like awakenings and transitions and transformations as they're going through the process of learning how and being attuned to Kundalini Reiki. I had nothing, like nothing. And the only reason I actually got it was so that I could say to someone, they could go to the new Google, right? Because Google was still really new back in the early 2000s. You can go to Google, put in the word Reiki. Well, Rei is universal and Ki or Chi is life force energy. So Reiki is just universal life force energy. Reiki is like tuning you into a radio station and you're permanently tuned there. So there's never any static. You have a constant connection to source energy. The fact of the matter is, if you're listening to this podcast, you already are connected to source energy. This just gives you some credibility, some validity, some extra confidence because you got that little piece of paper that says someone taught me how to use this. But really, if you're listening to this podcast already, you already have the capability of tapping into universal energies and using it for whatever. This just helps people kind of give them a focus and something to hone in on and say, oh, I have this XYZ label. Oh, look, I'm a Kundalini teacher now too, right? So I'm not putting down these practices when I say this. All I'm saying is that we all already have this innately within us. This is just an extra tool to help us utilize it better. What do I love about Kundalini Reiki? Kundalini Reiki is intuitive. and intentional. So unlike other Reikis where you have to call in ascended masters, or you have to remember certain symbols, or you have to breathe out 14 colors of purple flame, or whatever it is you do, this is, you think Kundalini Reiki, it starts to run and you just follow where your hands want to go, right? It's super intuitive and it's a very high energy Reiki. So people who have gone through Yuzui, which is the one with all the symbols, and you go through your 3 levels and you become a master teacher, then that is, they're there. Kundalini Reiki 1 puts you at level 3 of Yuzui. So you're starting at your master teacher level of Yuzui with Kundalini Reiki 1, and then you go up. So there's 3 major attunements, 1, 2, and 3, booster attunements. So that takes you to 9 attunements there. There is gold Reiki, which is 3 attunements, and ethereal crystal attunements, which allows you to tap into the energy of any crystal that you would like to have access to. So there's a lot of attunements involved in this particular Reiki. But we go through it slowly and we go through it at your pace. And people, it's amazing watching my students as they go through this, and they just, as one student put it, it's just made him a better human, because it puts you more in touch with who you are, because you have to use Reiki, you have to understand how energy works through you.
Yes. Oh my God. That is like, that is so romantic. That is like really beautiful. And I think it's actually why we are here initially, is to become better humans, or kind of to phrase it differently, to correct something within ourselves that kind of needs attention. So what I think is really interesting, because that's a big topic in my life, is this certification thing. I feel the human brain kind of searches for a logical way to go there, and if you don't go there, and it's kind of wrong. So if you want to do anything and claim to be an expert or valuable in anything, you need to have like that paper with that stamp on. And I strongly disagreed from the start of my working, journey. And although I'm really happy that I am, I kind of sometimes fall back into this, like, but am I really, like, am I really capable? Even though I'm doing all that stuff, am I really capable? And I love that you touched on this, because I feel the more I'm, the more of these podcasts I have, the more people I meet who actually say that that's not what it is. It's like, not maybe saying like, I wish I would never have gotten a certification, but it's like you said, we are all able to do that. And I feel we're collectively shifting into a time where we don't require these papers. If they kind of like make us more comfortable, then it's fine, but it's not a requirement anymore, I believe, or at least will be in the near future, a requirement to be seen as an expert, or be seen as like a valuable gift in whatever area you're working on. And I love that shift very much. Still, I feel it's kind of a challenge to navigate this, like you said, you got all these attunements. It's kind of the same thing. You got the paper, but you got all the attunements, and then it did work out in a different way than you might have expected it.
And I like that you're touching on this certification piece too, because I'm a manifesting generator. Manifesting generators in human design, they do everything by trial and error. If you were to ask me how many courses I've taken about chakras, and if you listen to me talk about the chakras, you would think that I've taken a ton of courses. I have not. And here's the other piece. That certification then makes us a quote unquote expert. Well, guess what? If you know a lot about a topic, you're already an expert, and you can use that term. But we look at the word expert and we think, oh, they've gone to school, they've got their PhD, they've spent all this money, yada, yada. You can be an expert in whatever you are passionate about. And you can claim that word without it being an egoic issue.
Mm-hmm.
So I call myself a spiritual empowerment expert, because I help people empower themselves. I help them remember who they are. I am not afraid to use that term expert, because I think after 30 years of being in the spiritual realms, I could call myself an expert. I've had lots of experiences. I've had lots of people reach out to me for lots of different reasons. You don't have to have a stack of certifications to make you an expert any longer. And we never did. It's all a social construct.
It is, and maybe it's about the boldness, because like if you think, you touch on human design, like Ra-Uru, who channeled this amazing system, he channeled that, and he didn't have a certification from Spirit to say like, okay, now you're an expert in human design, now you go teach the world about that. So he kind of had that confidence through this like amazing insights that he had to like say like, okay, this is something really valuable here. Like, do you want to listen to what I've found out or what I've downloaded? And it's exactly the same thing. So now we're getting certifications for something that was initially channeled. Like everything, it actually doesn't make any sense if you think about it. It's something like we run around collectively, like collecting any papers that give us any credibility. And for me, that speaks to this like core wound of, am I good enough? Am I valuable? Am I worthy of getting the attention, getting the financial exchange, getting the love, whatever it is that you're searching for? But it all comes down to this like, do you feel you deserve that? Can you actually hold that in your vessel? And that's a much more like interesting topic to talk about. But not many people do. And I love that we're like seeing a shift here, that we finally come to a different way of thinking about what all our insights, all our reflections, all the things we've experienced in this lifetime and even past lifetimes, of course, add on to the wisdom we hold. And that is kind of enough now. And that's beautiful.
Yes, I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. And I had a thought and it completely jumped out of my brain.
Because I've seen the thought. I've seen like, okay, what's coming now? It will come.
There was something that you had said and I was like, oh, and I have such a good piece for that. Oh, I know. The piece I wanted to say was, I think if we all understood or actually understood that we are all a fractal of source energy, if we all understood that we are actually God walking around in a meat suit, we would never question our self-worth. We would never question our intelligence. We would never question our value. If we stop looking outside of ourselves and start really looking inside, we start to really understand and understand how much has been stripped away from us and how much we are just an energetic piece of this whole collective that we live in. And that God don't make no junk. If you are a fractal of the universe, you are perfect just the way you are.
Yeah. I love that so much. And I feel like it's deeply soothing and giving relief to the ego or like the wounded parts of the self. What I also have experienced for myself and the women I'm working with is that these kind of glimpses, they come, but then unfortunately they kind of go away again because the paradigm's still so strong and there are so many limiting beliefs that tell you like, that's kind of like, okay, what's that? That's kind of blasphemy, or that is kind of like you're devaluing your religion or whatever stuff comes up around you putting yourself on a pedestal, which it is not. But like the question that lies behind what I'm trying to say is like, how do we stay connected to that awareness? Because I 100% think it's right, and I totally agree with you. If we would have that present, if we would be aware of that collectively, or even just a bit more individually, life would be different and the world would look very different. So the question is like, how to remember that in your everyday life? How can we really embody that level of limitlessness, that level of power, when for the last few thousand years we kind of like have beaten ourselves up and made ourselves as small as we could just possibly make ourselves?
That's a really interesting question. And that comes back to energetics. So we as humans, we're busy thinking all the time. Our brain and our ego are created to keep us safe. Okay. And they work together. They need to be there. I mean, they get us up out of bed. They make sure we eat, we get water. We know how to do things. We get our clothes on. We're not walking around naked. Like, our ego is there for good reasons. And our brain is there logically putting all the things together to make sense of our world. The problem is that we forget about our energetic selves. And so I bet you if I said, how many of you that are listening to this podcast right now can raise your hand and say, yes, I'm an overthinker. Yes, I think way too much. Yes, I'm stuck in my thoughts. I bet you most of you are going to be raising your hands. So how do you get out of that? First thing you need to recognize is the fact that when you're overthinking, you're sitting in the ether above your head. You're not even physically, you're not even energetically in your body. So how do you ground in a new thought paradigm? By staying grounded in your body, by making sure if you're overthinking, if you feel like you're lightheaded or you're floaty or whatever, you are ungrounded because you are not inside your body. So you have to sit, get quiet, even just for a couple of moments. And I do mean like we're talking 5 seconds, 10 seconds tops. We're not talking, a full on 30-minute meditation or whatever. We're talking take a couple breaths and focus on pulling your energy back all the way down to your root chakra, down to your butt, so that you actually feel like your butt is getting grounded into whatever seat that you're in. As soon as you do that, you'll notice things like anxiety start to drop. You'll notice if you've got, a racing heart, your heart will start to slow down. Everything starts to slow down because now you are in your natural state of being embodied. And if you're struggling with that, if you struggle with staying in your body, I'm going to give you a really cool little exercise. So what you're going to do is you're going to breathe in and pull yourself down to that root chakra. And you're going to take your hands and you're going to put them on top of your crown chakra, on top of each other, so that you technically cannot escape energetically out of your crown chakra. As you pull that energy down, you're going to pretend or visualize in your brain, you're going to visualize yourself stitching your energy around your root chakra so that it's holding you down, and you've got your hands on your head. Now, what's going to happen the first time you do this? Okay.
Yeah.
So the first time you do this, you might feel your energy bouncing around inside your body, even though you've tried to stitch it, because your body is not used to having your energy inside its energy system. But over time, you will learn a couple of breaths, pull yourself down. Now you feel more solid in your body. You're not supposed to be walking around as an etheric being. You're supposed to be walking around as a human being. So to be human, you have to be grounded in your system, in your energetic system. And over time, you'll be able to do that, and you'll be able to sit with it. And you'll notice that the more grounded you stay, the less you overthink, the less you worry about things. And then concepts like, I'm a fractal of the universe, will start to settle into your system. And you'll be like, right. Because your soul will start to have this remembering. But when you're not in your body, your soul and your energetics, when everything is not connected to each other, it's like throwing confetti in the wind. Like it's counterproductive, right? So making sure that you're staying really deeply, solidly grounded in your body allows you to start to bring in those new beliefs and have them be grounded and embodied so that they don't go away, and so that your soul goes, right, I remember that now. And then you don't forget it. And that doesn't mean you don't slide back and have a bad day and go, oh my God, I feel like crap and I did all these things and what an idiot and blah, blah, blah. And then as soon as you get into that, you pull yourself back and go, it's all good. It's all good. Nothing died. Nothing terrible happened. I just had a bad day. I'm still an awesome human being, right? But it is all about your energetics. It is all about understanding how your energy system works and how to stay in your energy system for those new thought processes to be able to make a new home within your body.
That is beautifully phrased. And I think while you talked, I imagined like almost everyone that I've ever been in contact with is, let's say, guilty of being up there and not being in their head. So we humans walk around a lot, not being actually in our physical body, which is kind of an interesting topic to think about. But I totally agree. The overwhelm leaves, and this like doubt leave the moment we come back to ourselves, the moment
And
we
when we come
ground.
back, sorry.
Yeah.
And when we come back to ourselves, we put ourselves back in the present moment. So we're no longer sitting in the regrets and the guilts of the past. And we're also not sitting in the worry of all the things that haven't happened yet in the future. We're sitting in the now moment. It's like, okay, well, I did these things. I took responsibility for these things. Yeah, they made my day kind of crappy. No, I'm not going to worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. I'm going to sit in this now moment. And in this moment, I'm okay. I'm a piece of
Mm.
God. I'm good to go. Maybe I'll go have a bath. Like you have to keep bringing yourself back to now, to now, to now, because now is all we have. That is one thing that I learned in spades when my husband died. Was right now, this moment. This is all we've got because you don't know the next moment, whether or not you're going to have a heart attack, you're going to have a stroke, someone's going to hit your car, space junk is going to fall from the sky and land on your head. You just don't know what's going to happen. You don't know when your time is up. Stay in the now moment and you'll never worry about it.
Mm. What ties into that, what comes to my mind is one of my teachers said like we're massively overstepping our boundaries by worrying about the future or like the past. So every time we are not in the now, we're kind of like overstepping our boundaries and trying to do the universe's job. And I love that very much. And I think it's essentially the same thing that you just say is this like coming back to the present. We hear that so much, but I feel it's like one of the things that kind of get buried with all that, oh, I have to do this and that. And then again, none of that is important if you don't actually feel into the now moment. Because, like you said, right now, this house could collapse or whatever, things could happen, and it's out of our own hands. So, the only thing that is in our own hands is how we operate in exactly this moment. And this is also where the miracles happen, but it's again something that we don't do, maybe due to what you said, like this not being even in our body, not even having the presence of like, how do I feel right now? Am I really grounded? Am I actually in here somewhere, or am I like kind of floating around? So it's really interesting how quote unquote easy it could be. That's always something that I wonder. But because we've talked before about like how everything is intertwined and how everything is just one, actually everything's already very easy. We just make it very complicated with our paradigms or limiting beliefs or the way we have been raised and brought up, whatever we have been programmed in it. So it makes it complicated. But by coming back with a simple exercise like this, feeling the shift of the energy, if you would do that enough, things would shift so big. So it's so funny that it is not complicated at all.
It isn't. And here's the thing is we're so busy because we have all been traumatized on some level. We're so busy trying to micro control all the things in our world that we're missing out on the magic of the moment. We're missing out on the magic of the universe. We miss out on those times where if we just surrendered and didn't put a timeline on things, because, everything's a big hurry on this planet.
Yes.
If we just trusted more, and we surrendered more, you would find that this life is actually quite magical.
Yeah.
I've
Agreed.
had really magical things happen in the midst of an awful lot of horrible things happening. I've had a lot of really magical, interesting things happen. People step up for me out of, nowhere, and money showing up from places that I wouldn't have expected, and opportunities showing up. A perfect opportunity. I had a gentleman, I was talking with Anna about this right before we recorded. There was a guy that I spent a weekend with. It was platonic, but it turned out he was interested in me. Then he ghosted me and I didn't hear anything from him. And then he showed up in my world last month in February. And we had talked in the middle of the night from like 2 until 4 in the morning on the phone, just catching up and whatever. But when he messaged me, he was like, hey, and I was like, hey, and he's like, sorry about that. Everything went sideways, da, da, da. And then the next question, he had no idea where I was, no idea what I was doing, said, are you looking for work? And I was looking for work. So now I am working with him. And it just showed up. I didn't put out a job application. I just said to the universe, hey, need an income because this planet requires it. And the universe went, oh, okay, let's bring this guy back. So now I'm working with this guy and it's great. But would I have found that on my own? Absolutely not.
No, I think it's not possible. We don't have this overview in how we're incarnated right now to see all these things. So it's divine orchestration that brings everything together, and we try to fiddle in there, but it's none of our business actually. But what is our business is like the allowing in. So when that, to stay tangible here, when that guy came back and said like, do you want to work with me? Then it's your responsibility, or it's in your power to say like, oh yes, I take that, I accept that invitation that is actually coming from the universe through that person. Or you could say like, okay, no, that's not aligned for whatever reason. So then that is your turn.
Right.
But before,
That's where your free will comes in. That also
yeah,
comes into play with if you stay embodied and an opportunity comes in your direction, or someone asks you if you want to do something. As we're moving more and more into these 5D ascension energies and the planet is becoming more and more 5D online, you're going to notice that someone's going to say something to you and you have two responses now. It's hell yes or hell no. There is nothing in between. There is no logicking things through anymore. There's no, you got to think about it. I got to consider everything. No, drop into your heart. If it's a yes, do it. If your heart's like, don't do it. It's really that simple. And the more you say no to the things that are not for you, the more yes things will show up for you.
which is really, I love the way you put it, because I feel what often happens is that we think we need to say yes out of being polite, but also out of this like, what if nothing better comes around? The kind of lack mentality of like, let's better take this, let's better secure this, let's better like kind of, control things and take that opportunity because we don't know what's happening next. So if there's nothing better come around, I better like have said yes to this. And what you're saying is exactly what I'm witnessing over the last few years, like in my life personally. Is this like there's no in between anymore. It's yes or no. And sometimes it shifts from a full body yes to no out of like circumstances shifting, but it's a very clear, energetic sign, a very clear lean into a direction. And it's not anymore this like, maybe, yeah, I could. But what I want to come back to is this trusting that something better shows up when we say no, because I feel like there's a lot of like people still mistrusting themselves, mistrusting the universe, and therefore like trying to control, and have a hard time going into the mode of faith and saying like, well, yeah, I say no to this, I have no idea what's coming up next, but I'm sure the universe will provide for me. So let's see what comes up. That's kind of like a very uncomfortable place for most of us.
It is very uncomfortable. And I have a great example that I can share with you. So
Yeah.
in 2024, I spent 5.5 months living off grid. I was living and working on private property, managing Airbnb properties. So I was doing the flips and it was off grid. We're talking composting toilets. So I was emptying shit buckets. We're talking solar power. We're talking like off the grid. Now I needed to get off the off grid property and offers started coming in. But if it wasn't a hell yes, it was no. And it's uncomfortable because you're saying no and you're like, but I don't know if the right thing is going to come. Do you know I had 7 offers that I turned down before the right offer came in. It took 2 months, and I went through a lot in those 2 months. But because I trusted, the right opportunity finally showed up. And that was when I said yes. And the second it showed up, it had a feeling to it. So if you don't get that God moment feeling when something, if you're going to say yes to something and it has that feeling of, whoa, where did that come from? Or, ooh, wait a second, I think I'm supposed to take this. Or, whoa, hey, I don't remember putting that out in the universe, but wow, you get that feeling. There's just this, it's been orchestrated for you feeling. So each one of those opportunities, each one had something that was good about it, but also something that wasn't good about it. When the last opportunity showed up, not only was it the right opportunity, but I was there within 18 hours. Like I was literally off the property in 18 hours. That's how fast it happened.
Yeah.
So things that are meant for you will not pass you by. And I think that's something everybody needs to remember, is that if it is meant for you, it will not miss you. Even if it doesn't get you the first time, it's going to come back around and get you in from another direction because it's meant for you. But when you jump into these things that are not 100% in alignment with you, that's when you have regrets. That's when you go, oh, I should have listened to myself. Oh man, I knew that. I had this feeling and I didn't listen to it. I've done that so many times that this time I thought, no, I'm going to wait and I'm going to wait and I'm going to wait until the right thing shows up. And it was uncomfortable. I was screaming at the universe every day, universe, get me the off here. Like, get me out of here. Every day I'm outside yelling at the universe, you need to get me the hell out of here. And when it did happen, it happened like that.
It's a really powerful reminder to not compromise anymore, to like really go honor our inner yeses, our needs, our desires to 100% and not go in this kind of people pleasing mode, whether with another person or with the universe, because this is, like you said, that's the point where we regret from. But if we stay in a full body no, then we don't need to regret anything because we know that the full body yes is kind of coming. Like you said, the universe will always give you another chance because you cannot miss what is for you. And I always imagine with this to kind of get that into my head when I forget it. It's like a mother who wants to do something good for their children, maybe she wants to feed their children or give them something to drink. She wouldn't ask once and then say, oh, well, they didn't take it, then I never offer it again. Of course, you would go again and kind of make sure that your kid has what it's needed to survive. And I think it's the same with the universe and us. We just don't get it because we're so sidetracked with controlling everything that we don't get how benevolent the universe is and how much everything is always working out for us. Maybe not in that moment, but who are we to know the divine timing, the orchestration of everything that needs to come together for you to have this hell yes moment that puts you on a different timeline that's beyond the human imagination. So if we aren't tapped into universal wisdom in that moment, we have just no idea. So why should we, try to control out of that limitation?
Because we don't understand that the universe has our back in all ways. It's not the universe has our back always. It does, but it's in all ways. The universe has our back. So things that pass you by were not meant for you, right? Even though you might think they were meant for you, you might even be disappointed because you wanted that and it wasn't for you. But you don't know what was going to go on if you had taken that particular opportunity, that direction. You don't know what you're being protected from. Yeah. So it's always got to be about, oh, that's a disappointment. Okay, there's something better. So it's this or better, this or better, this or better, right? You don't want worse than what you've got, this or better. So, you just tell the universe, I want this or better. I've said to the universe, I would go back off grid again, but it has to be better than what I was doing before, you know?
Mhm.
So needless to say, I'm not off grid. I'm living in a city again for the time being, right? So being off grid right now is not for me. And it might not ever be for me again, but I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be right now. And I think that's the other thing is if you don't feel like you're exactly where you're supposed to be, then you're probably not where you're supposed to be. But most of us that are listening to this podcast are light workers, star seeds, healers. We're all being planted in different places on the planet right now and have been planted because our light is needed exactly where it is. So if you haven't moved, it's because you're not done sharing your light and anchoring your light in that place that you're in and anchoring that energy and anchoring the love and anchoring all the things that particular spot needs.
That's a beautiful way of putting it, and it gives like release to this resistance that I feel so many of us hold. Again, in going into the control mode of things to say like, oh, that's what I wanted to be, or I expected it differently, or I hoped it will be different. But yes, of course, we have no idea what could happen if we actually would get what we think would be good for us, because it could be like hell breaking loose. So the moment we kind of become aware of the benevolence and that the universe really always has our back in whatever way we're going to, we can actually just relax and say like, release the resistance, because it's just, if there's anything like wasted energy, it would be wasted energy. It's just making things harder and, slower, but definitely you cannot miss what is for you, and you can also not kind of like avoid what you need to go through in order to share that light, in order to get that insight for yourself, or to grow in the way you're meant to grow on that place. So actually there is no point in all this movement we do to secure the spot that we're in, compared to just saying like, okay, what do you have for me today? Where should I go? Am I here where I am? Am I still in the right place? And then like wait for the yes or no and move accordingly. I feel it's as simple as that, but we make it more complicated with all these 3D intertwinements that we still have solid. We make it kind of solid, but it's more fluid. I feel every year it's getting more fluid and more, like you said, it's this yes and this no, where we come back to human design again, because that's what we shared before we hit record. This like full body yes of saying like, again, the body almost leans forward and says like, that's the right thing. So it's actually, again, nothing that you can miss if you have a bit of awareness on it.
100%. 100%. It's amazing the things that will come around for you
Mm-hmm.
if you just let them, you know? I mean, I also, think you saying those two words, let them, I'm sure you've heard Mel Robbins has written a book called The Let Them Theory. And the poem was actually written by Cassie Phillips to start with. And that poem has actually helped me a lot to detach from all the outer worldly things, right? Oh, this person doesn't like me. Okay, let them. I like me. I just have to worry about me. And we all seem to think that we're so important in other people's lives. Guess what? We're not. I hate to bring it to you. The only life that you're important in is your own. Because people aren't thinking about you near as much as you think that they are thinking about you. Trust me, when you lose your spouse, which is the number one most stressful event anybody can experience in their life, you learn very quickly how little people think about you. Just saying.
Yeah,
Because their
agreed.
lives are still going on, right? Their lives are still going on. Your life has now been put on hold. Your life is now in shattered shambles mode. And it's interesting how many people actually still think about you months down the road. And as I'm now coming into, the end of 2 years, even years down the road, it's amazing how many people don't don't even think about, oh my God, it's been almost 2 years for her now. Well, because it didn't happen to them. Their life is still going on. So if you think people are thinking about you, oh my God, Susie at work is thinking, I did such a terrible job. No, Susie doesn't give a rat's ass. I hate to tell you that. So focus your thoughts on yourself, on improving yourself, on improving your inner world, your inner dialogue, your inner energetics. Everything in this world is all about your inner world. Everything outside of you is a projection of what's going on inside you. And I never kind of really understood that until the last couple of years. And now I'm like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot more sense. And things like radical responsibility will help you shift how you see the world, because you're going to understand that every choice you make, I used to tell my kids, your decisions have consequences. Every choice you make has a good or a bad, because we label things good and bad. It has a consequence of some kind, of whether a positive consequence or a negative consequence. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You make a decision and then you go down the path and then something happens. Well, you could blame it on someone else. We all do it. Or you could take radical responsibility and say, oh, I made a really crappy choice there, didn't I? Oops,
Yeah.
I brought all that into my world. Oops.
Yeah. But it is kind of freeing. Maybe in the first moment, it's like really uncomfortable to admit that it's actually you who did that to you. But then again, it's so freeing to say, like, okay, well, I made that choice and the world hasn't gone down, so I can make a better one. I can choose differently. I have learned something through it. Like, best case scenario, you've learned something from your choice that you then found out is like feeling not good. And then you can do it again, but it's in your hands. Actually, I think that's like really an empowering way of living, even though initially there might be some resistance to it because it just feels uncomfortable. But it's, I think it's the way forward to like really go into our own world, not in a selfish way to say like how everybody else does is not important to me. That's like kind of what advocates make out of it. But it's more like this: I care for me, and I make sure that what I reflect out into the world is the best thing that I can possibly do in that moment for myself, and that also ripples out to the others. But you do it out of an act of self-love, or like inner interest to your soul, or following your calling, and not out of, I'm better than you because I made that choice, right? It's a different vibration.
Yeah.
Because we do a lot of things wrong. So that's the way we learn. We talked about the martyr. We both share the same human design profile, 1-3, the martyr, and the one who wants to learn and study 1,000 things at once. um, it's an interesting energy to like really go in there and say like, I am doing that to myself. All of that is on me. So all of the shifts are on me as well.
Yeah, I'll give you another great. I have a life full of examples.
Yeah, that's
After my
good.
after my husband died, I met a man, and we had a short relationship for about 6 months. And right from the get-go, I saw all the red flags. I journaled about the red flags, so it's not like I didn't see them, but I allowed him to stay in my world for various reasons. He had told me his story, and I made excuses and all of those things. And I was mourning, and I was really deeply mourning, and I'm trying to fill this void, and I don't have anywhere to put all this love. So bringing people into my world and pouring love into them, right? Because I'm not, how do I pour love into myself? My whole world, I don't even know who I am. So I didn't know, but I don't know why I didn't think that this would be a thing, but apparently those red flags eventually came back to bite me in the ass. And I don't know why I thought I would be different, but I guess I thought if I could love him out of his red flags, he'd be fine. He broke up with me, and it shattered my world. And I went through quite a journey last year. But recently he showed up at an event that I was at. And we didn't talk. As a matter of fact, he just avoided looking at me because, well, when he left, it was under really terrible circumstances, and he was a putz, and he knows he was a putz. But I was really triggered. And it wasn't until I got home that night, my nervous system is like, I'm trying to let all this stuff go. And finally, I was like, oh my God, yes, I was deeply mourning. No, I wasn't in a good place to be making any kinds of decisions because your brain changes when you're grieving like that. Your amygdala gets bigger and your hippocampus shrinks and your prefrontal cortex shrinks. So your logic goes out the window and your survival mode's kicked in. And, so you're not making great decisions.
Yeah, of course.
But I blamed him for everything that happened because he broke up with me. And it wasn't until I saw him that night and then realized that everything that happened to me after he broke up with me was my own damn fault, because I made the decision to let him in my world in the first place. And then every decision I made after that, he wasn't even around. So how can I blame him for those decisions? And it was like, this is gross. I don't like this. This is really uncomfortable. I don't like having to say he's not to blame, but that's the fact, is that he's not to blame for the decisions that I made. I made the decision to let him into my world, seeing those red flags. And then every decision I made after and in the relationship too, and then after he left, they were all mine. And it was like, oh, I can't project the blame on anybody anymore. I have to take full credit for all of that mess. Oh, good. No, and then last night, again, more of this radical acceptance of, I live with my son right now, and my son comes home and he's rant about the one crappy thing that happened to him instead of talking about all the great things that happened to him. And this is where we tap back into that martyr piece that Anna's mentioned a couple of times. Is I realized last night that I was being a martyr in my own little world here. 'Cause, I had some really terrible things happen to me in the last 2 years. There is no word of a lie. Anyone that would hear my story would not blame me for being a martyr or being a victim or anything. No one would blame me in any way, shape, or form. However, I have been so focused on all the things that I have lost in the last 2 years. And last night it was, yeah, but what did you gain? And it was like, oh, I was like, oh, so I'm sitting here being a martyr. Oh, look at me. I've had it so bad for the last 2 years. Look at how awesome I am because I'm still sitting here, instead of going, wait, but what did I learn in the last 2 years? What did I gain from the last 2 years? I'm looking at myself going, I'm not all that much farther ahead than I was 2 years ago when my husband died, but I'm a very different human being with a lot of different insights into the world. And I'm resourceful and all these really amazing, I have been through some really fascinating experiences and gotten a lot of skills. But have I sat and thought about any of those things? Have I written them down? Oh, hell no. Why would I do that when it's easier to be a martyr and go, I've had such a bad couple of years, right? It's really ugly when you have to start taking all this radical, deep responsibility for everything that's going on in your world. But the more I do it, the higher quality people that come into my world, the better the opportunities are that are coming into my world, the happier I am. I am so much happier because I'm not being weighed down by self-blame, self-doubt, self-worth issues. I know who I am now. And okay, maybe I don't always like the bits and pieces that are coming out, but I can fix some of those pieces. And other pieces, maybe they're there because I need them there. But when we really focus on what's going on in our inner world, our outer world changes because we change first, fundamentally. If you want your outer world to change, you have to change what you're doing on the inside. That means, I know everybody hates this word, but that means meditating. And that doesn't mean you have to go and get quiet and go om and do all the, mudras and all of that stuff. That means go wash the dishes, put your hands in water and let your brain kind of float off. Go for a walk, dance, paint a picture, write a story, stream of consciousness style. Like there's lots of ways to meditate that aren't sitting there cross-legged on a cushion, going, home, spirit guides, where are you? Like you don't have to get into that space. There's so many different ways of getting meditation into your world. There's meditation apps that only, if you sit there for 2 minutes and you meditate, that just helps to slow your brain down, get you again embodied back in your body, and allows for space so that the universe can download information into you. Because you're here to learn and expand the collective knowledge. How can you do that if you're getting in the way of what's supposed to be coming in through your crown chakra?
It's again like coming back full circle to it's all there already. Everything is already present. It's about you letting it in. And how do we do that? Not by, hustling and doing as many things as possible, like we have maybe been raised with, but like getting into the stillness, getting into the uncomfortability, accepting that we have kind of chosen to not have what we want or to not have the insights we want because we haven't chosen to be still or we haven't chosen to take our responsibility. So it essentially comes all back to us, to leading with our energy and not leading with our action. And I feel it's a concept that we're slowly grasping collectively as well, with a little hiccups down the road. But still, it's like the concept in itself is so amazing that everything is already there, and every answer that you could possibly have on every question, you can just sit there and wait and trust it's coming, and then it's coming. It's just, I think it's deeply fascinating how beautiful the universe is always providing once we let it. And that's again the free will you've touched on before, that it's on us to hear that or not hear that and stay in victimhood or in martyrdom or not. And the shift can be so immediate. I love that it came up a few times now in within the last hour, that if we trust, if we don't go compromise, the shift can be so fast. And that is something, not that it's about the fastness, but maybe that's like a good pattern interruption to see yeah, actually, that's how powerful I am. Actually, that's what I can create with the universe together. It doesn't have to take years and years and years. It can, but it's also possible that it's within the blink of an eye, there comes this understanding, there comes this abundance of knowledge or whatever it is that you're calling in. So the shifts can be immediate, but it's on us to let them in. And I think it's really beautiful to make that aware again and again and again. That's part of why I'm doing the podcast, to remind people how I would love to have been reminded myself when I started my journey. And I felt like you just shared, with a lot less outside world drama, but there was so much inside world drama, how alone I felt, how overwhelmed I felt. I would love to have someone tell me actually the universe isn't going to break you. It's supporting you. So how? And seeing that and being reminded of that again and again and again until our stubborn brain kind of takes that in, is one of the most valuable things I think we could do for ourselves or for others, to give that power back to. That's essentially what you said, is what you're doing as well, is this empowerment, this the driving force of giving back to the people the power that they already have, that they just are not aware of. And I feel that's it's a really beautiful concept. It's just really beautiful.
It is a really beautiful concept. And another one of those pieces of that radical responsibility is understanding that when something happens in our world and we feel abandoned or rejected or betrayed, we have to stop and look at our inner world again, because, it's just gross being this awake. It's really gross when you're really super conscious of all your own crap.
Oh, actually, you
But
might
we have
have
to stop and
yourself.
sorry.
Actually, you might have abandoned yourself if you're feeling
That's
abandonment
it. That's right. That's what I was going to say was if you're feeling abandoned or betrayed or rejected, you have to look and see where you abandoned yourself. So when my boyfriend, my
Mhm.
ex-boyfriend broke up with me, did I feel abandoned? Yup. My husband had only died 9 months before. But where did I abandon myself? Oh, gee, I don't know. He was a walking red flag and I let him in my world. You think I abandoned myself? Maybe just a little. Right? So, so yeah, it really does always come back to you. And it's, you can say, oh, but I was abandoned at birth and I've never healed from that.
Mhm.
That's true. That's true. No one's going to say that that's not the truth. But as an adult, it's up to you to figure out, yeah, you know what? Okay, I was abandoned at birth, but do I have to keep living that pattern? Do I have to keep choosing that? Do I have to let that be my core wound? And if it is my core wound, how do I deal with it the next time it shows up?
Yeah.
Right? Conscious awareness is everything.
Yeah. Agreed.
And it really does change your world.
Hmm. That is so deeply beautiful. I think that will be the title of the episode. Conscious awareness is everything. That is like, oh, you know, full body, yes, because we talked about that before. I thank you so much. I could talk on for the next 5 hours straight if it wouldn't be that late in here. But I would love to do that again, of course. And I thank you so much for all the wisdom and for being so open and for being so direct. I really think it's a wonderful way to hear about your power in a loving, direct way, because that is what's shaking us up and like making us look into this, like, oh, that's uncomfortable, but I will look at it still because I know the power that I can unearth from this.
I
Mm.
really appreciate the opportunity to have had this conversation with you. I don't even think this is what we were going to initially talk about, but this is where we were led. So I have really appreciated the opportunity just to share some really deep, esoteric, life changing thoughts with you. And I hope that whoever hears this, I hope that something in here makes you go and changes your world, because these things have all changed my world, and they haven't always been fun or easy, but they have radically been changing my world. And, if one of your listeners wakes up and goes, oh my God, I get it, and I love myself, then we have done the right thing. Right.
Agreed.
So I just want to say, I love you to everybody. And I hope that there was a nugget in here that helped you.
I have full body chills. I'm sure there are so many of them, and thank you so much for sharing. This was lovely and inspiring, and so much joy to me. Um, hmm, beautiful.
Beautiful. Thank you